Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, my next guest is larger than life. Well, he used to be, right? He used to be. Not so much anymore. But I got an extra special treat for you. And this is a dude that I've been a big fan of myself for quite some time. And I'm extremely excited to have him joining me here in the Hit Lab today on the podcast, right? So, folks, check it out. Buckle up. Don't hold your breath for this intro because it's a laundry list of accomplishments. We're going to be here for a minute is what I'm telling you, right? So, folks, check it out, all right? You know him as the overall attraction. And once you find out who it is, if you don't already know, you're going to know that's a brilliant play on words. It's an album title too, if I don't say, right? So check it out. He's the overall attraction, folks. He has, he's been featured in MTV's Top 30 Music Videos just last year. He's been nominated for a CMT Award. Last year, he was on Grant Cardone's Great American Speak Off. He's been featured in Us Weekly, People Magazine, NBC, ABC, The National Enquirer. He's the co-host of the Refined Life podcast. Folks, singer, songwriter, athlete, actor, and biggest loser finalist, Bigg Vinny. How we doing, baby?
What's going on? Woo! I try to live with intentions of being wild, crazy, fun, keeping the party going, all that good stuff. And, it's awesome. I mean, when I hear you say it, I feel like, man, I did a lot of stuff. I was like, I don't remember doing all of it, but I did it, So, except for the National Enquirer, I just like to always tell people I did that just because it'd be really cool. It's like a dream of mine to get featured in there. Like maybe I'll get to meet Elvis one day, like the alien Elvis or something like that. So, but anyways, I appreciate you having me on, dude. I'm a fan of your show. I'm a fan of what you do. Obviously, we've worked together and, we've done our podcasts and stuff with you and had some great times with you, but it's cool to be asked to be on your show and be part of what you do, man.
Well, brother, we should have had you on here sooner. That's the only mistake I've made so far in this episode, right?
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
I wasn't going to say anything, but since you brought it up, no, I think, man, you know how it is. When you're right there together, a lot of times it's like you don't look at that. You're like, okay, I got to get this and this and this because we were together a lot there for the whole last year. Mm-hmm. So I like I said, it's an honor for me to be on here. Plus, you got them big hitters out there, them heavy. And I don't know if they've been in the National Enquirer yet, but they'll get there.
Well, dude, we got to come right out of the gates swinging, right? So you got some big news that you can share that actually, when this episode comes out, it will not be a secret news anymore. However, but this is we're talking about for the first time today, right? So let's let them have it.
And this is literally just developed over the last 24 to 48 hours. Basically, I did the Great American Speak Off last year, but before that, I was in this event called Risk On 360 was in Vegas. There's a guy named Todd Alt who's just a great guy, and he saw me performing at a play one time, and he said, "Hey, I would love you to come out and see what I do." I was like, "Sure." So he ends up having me come out and has me speak and kind of tell my story a little bit. Well, in that same time, I got to speak with, right before RFK Jr. I got to perform a song right before RFK Jr. come up to speak.
Come on.
Tucker Carlson was speaking, Charles Payne, Brad Lee. Mm-hmm. Like it was just all these great speakers. I was like, holy crap, man, do I even belong here? And I think you kind of get that like imposter syndrome. Well, while I was there, I met this guy named Richard Coletti. And Richard owns about 40 roofing companies down in Florida. And so I'm like, I don't know what we got in common with this dude, but me and him get along great. So we just hung out and become friends. Well, he calls me, he says, "Hey, I'd love for you to come down here and play some music. And I just want to put on a little show and make it, where he was going to do, when you're getting clients, what do you call it? Like, when you're trying to find lead generation.
Oh, yeah.
So he was using this concert as lead generation. So they show up, he put on the concert for free and featuring Bigg Vinny and all this. And probably had 200-300 people show up that night on a Wednesday night. It was great. Well, as I get to talking to him, I was like, well, tell me about this roofing thing. He's like, oh, man, with your personality, you'd be great. I'm like, well, I want to be in a roofing. I was like, I'm not a roofer. I don't want to do roofing. He goes, well, you ain't got to do no roofing. I said, you don't want me climbing around on your roof. I'll fall through that thing. And he said, nah, I ain't letting you on no roofs, Bigg Vinny. He said, you ain't got to climb the first ladder. He goes, we got drones that do half the stuff now. He said, you just got to be the personality. And so he starts talking to me, and I'm like, yeah. Well, I don't think nothing of it. Well, a couple times passed. Next thing you know, I get invited to another roofing event, and another roofing event, and then it was a Lee Haight guy or whatever was there. And, then he's talking about, oh, you ought to have your own roofing company. Well, I'm going to have my own roofing company now. It's going to be called Overall Roofing. Because my overalls. Normally I wear overalls, but today you got me straight out the gym. I've been pumping iron, getting it on. But anyway, so I'm going to have my own roofing company now, and I'm excited about it. So the couple guys came together. They're bringing in the crews and the knowledge and all that kind of stuff, and I get to be the I guess the figurehead. I get to be the face of the place, and do the social media content, get the sales team together, use my personality. I said, listen, my whole life, I've always used my personality and who I am as a person, the jovial, person that I am, to create great things. I said, so when people ask me, what do you want to do? I was like, I just want to be me. And so he said, well, here's a way that you can just be you, but you're going to add to what we're doing to help build this company up.
That's
so
right.
Official Overall Roofing is in the process. The LLC has been, he's getting all that stuff, all that information together, and I'll have my own roofing company for too long.
Congratulations, baby. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Folks, check it out. Keep up with Bigg Vinny online. You can keep him up on his website at biggvinnyofficial.com. That's big with 2 G's, if you didn't already know that,
too
right?
Big for 1 G.
He's too big for 1 G. Larger than life, baby. On Instagram at Bigg Vinny Official, and on Facebook at Bigg Vinny, right? So, Vinny, you've been, first of all, you're an investor in the Buffalo River Resort, right? Which is such a cool thing. But currently you've been performing in the Shiners Nashville Variety Show and touring with the Nashville Cartel, right? So talk to me a little bit about that real quick.
The Shiners thing has been so cool. And it was one of those deals. I took my wife on a Valentine's date. And that's really what it was intended to do. So I go on this Valentine's date, and Chuck Wicks, who you probably know, has been around town for a while, has been a buddy of mine. I sent him a text message that day, said, hey, I'm coming to your show tonight. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'll leave you tickets. And I said, nah, bro, I bought tickets. I was like, I'm trying to support what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he probably gets hit up for tickets a lot because he's got a lot of friends, And so now I'm trying to support what you're doing. I already bought tickets. I'm bringing my wife there for Valentine's. Plus, I'd feel weird about taking free tickets for a Valentine's date.
Yep.
So we show up, and I don't know what to expect. And I get there, and this show is just incredible. Like, it blew my mind how good the show was. So I, give him a hug, see him, whatever he goes about, does his business. I text him later on. I said, man, I just wanted to let you know, me and my wife agree, this is the best date that we've been on. We had the most fun. We laughed. We were so entertained and all this stuff. I said, I just want you to know I'm so proud of you for creating something in Nashville that nobody else has had the balls to do yet. And then he sends back, not thanks, not nothing. So, hey, bro, would you want to be my understudy? And I was like, well, we look just alike. Now, if you've seen Chuck Wicks, I mean, we're basically the same human being. So, but anyways, I was like, yeah, man, I mean, I'd love to do that, but I've never done theater in my life. I've never done anything like that. And we don't look nothing alike. And he goes, oh, I don't care if we look alike. He goes, and you'll kill it. I mean, you've done live shows a million times. It's just like that, except for you got a script you got to memorize. I'm like, yeah, I've never done that before. He goes, well, learn how to do it. He goes, you're in. And so I started studying, and at the time I had just had ankle surgery. I was still in a boot, could barely walk. But by the time summer rolled around, I started kind of performing and doing those spots. And it's just turned into one of my favorite things to do. I never knew in a million years that theater would be something that I would be crazy about. But I think when you get to kind of ad lib, and it's one of those shows where you break the fourth wall and you mess with the audience and all that kind of stuff, it's been one of the coolest things I've got to do. So that's been awesome. Touring with Nashville Cartel. Nashville Cartel is really what we call the show. The members can change anytime. So what we try to do is we try to, I get with buyers and vendors and fairs and festivals, and they say, hey, Vinny, can you help me book my openers? We got our headliners, but we need some more talent to add in. And so I can reach people, everybody from, guys like James Otto, who have had number one, and he wrote in color for Jamie Johnson, all the way to Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC. There's so many different guys I have contact with because of my years in the business. I'm able to put together a pretty cool lineup, and we can say, hey, let us come out there and do this. A lot of times we end up being the headliner, which is really cool. But Nashville Cartel is basically just a bunch of friends that come together for a musical alliance in order to create something great, to go out there and deliver something great to the show. And honestly, it's me out there hustling, and that's how I make my money, is going out there and saying, hey, let me handle it. Let me take it all off your plate. I'll handle the contracts. I'll handle this. I'll handle that. You're going to get a great show, and people are going to show up. Now, you still have to advertise. That's still on you. That's right. But I'm going to bring a bunch of big names with a bunch of number one hits. For the Hitstreak. We're going to bring a bunch of people with a bunch of number one hits, and we're going to go after it.
I love it. It's, dude, actually, Kirkpatrick he's somebody that has been on my list of somebody I want to get on this show for quite some time. So I'm going to ask a favor there and ask you to connect.
I'll make it happen. He lives not too far up the road here.
That's right.
He lives in Terramore or whatever. So.
That's right. Well, dude, he's awesome dude, and honestly, I love his podcast and all that stuff. It's just cool. That's right. It's all. He's just an awesome dude,
and he's just a good dude, man. Like, can I tell you a quick story about it?
Yeah, come on.
So here's how we met. In a million years, you wouldn't think Bigg Vinny from Trailer Choir would become friends with Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC.
Yep.
And it wasn't on my list of things to happen, and I mean, I didn't even know that I was an NSYNC fan until I started hearing their songs. And I was like, oh no, I do love that song. And I was like, bye, 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 tear it up. I was doing all this stuff. Anyways, this is the way we met. My wife was training at Orange Theory in Franklin. She was the trainer for the group. So she was training people every morning, and she was pregnant with our firstborn. All of a sudden, the owner comes up to her and says, hey, there's a girl named Megan that owns it. And she comes up and said, hey, we have a person coming in and they're pregnant as well. So I want you to, now that you're pregnant, can you give her some tips and things like that? Well, she don't know. It's just a girl named Carly. And so my wife sits down and talks with her and all this stuff. And she really enjoyed my wife. So they end up going out to lunch, whatever, talking, became friends. Next thing I know, she was always going to hang out with Carly, who was also pregnant, was like, oh, that'd be cool. Then they'll have a friend to grow up with. They were due like a week apart from each other, ours and theirs. And so one day they're at lunch and they start talking. She's like, I never asked you, what does your husband do? And she asked my wife that. She goes, oh, my husband, he's pretty successful in the music business and the, country music world. He had a band called Trailer Choir and they, had a big song and they were with Toby Keith and like names off all this stuff. She goes, what does your husband do? She goes, oh, my husband's in the music industry too. She's like, what does he do? He's like, oh, he's with NSYNC. And she said, oh, that's cool. Is he like a sound guy, road guy? What does he do? She's like, no, he is NSYNC. He created NSYNC. It's Chris Kirkpatrick. And she comes home and tells me, I was like, how dumb she probably thought I was. But so anyway, so I still had not met this guy. He was training with another guy from Orange Theory, and we owned the gym at the time. So they were doing their personal training at our gym. So he had just signed Chris as a client. He comes up to me. His name is Chris. It was Chris and Chris. This Chris trainer comes up to me at my own gym and goes, Vinny, I have someone coming in today, and I don't want you to fangirl. I'm like, I've been in this business for a long time. I've pretty much met everybody. My dad was a musician, played with Steve Miller Band, David Allen Cole, Loretta Lynn, all these people. So probably not going to get starstruck anytime soon. And he's like, well, no, this is huge. This is bigger than all that. I was like, okay. I was like, dang, this might be something huge. He goes, I'm bringing in Chris Kirkpatrick. Now, this is weeks after my other conversation with my wife. And I was like, Chris Kirkpatrick. How do I know that name? He's like, NSYNC. I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to have to worry about me fangirling. I'm not going to fangirl over NSYNC. And I'm sitting there. Now, I'm training with Luke Rogers, who was my training partner at the time. And we're sitting there working out, and all of a sudden, this little guy walks in. I literally went, oh, my God, I can't believe you're here from Backstreet Boys, blah, blah, blah. He goes, who's this asshole? And he's like, oh, that's Vinny. He owns the gym. He's like, I like you. So we instantly hit it off, became friends. And the next thing you know, he goes, why'd you do all that? I was like, well, he told me not to fangirl over you. He's like, that's dumb. He goes, I love it when people fangirl over me.
That's right.
So we become buddies, and literally our kids have spent every birthday together, every Christmas together, Thanksgiving, Halloween, all this kind of stuff. And he's literally just one of the best people you ever meet. I've watched him. We took our kids to the Wiggles once. And we're literally sitting there at the Wiggles, getting ready to go in, and he got us backstage, of course. So our kids got to go in and meet the actual Wiggles. But as we're sitting there, you kind of see like one woman goes, and they start to notice that it's Chris Kirkpatrick. She goes, can I get my picture with you? Of course, after he takes one, it's 500.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so all of them, and all these moms are like, you go over there and talk to the Wiggles. I'm going here to meet Chris Kirkpatrick. So anyways, but he sat there with every single one of them, heard their stories, gave them hugs, took pictures, and just treats everybody like royalty. So he's a great guy.
Well,
on to me.
Absolutely.
As Toby Keith would say, I want to talk about me.
I want to talk about me. Dude, there's so many directions that we can take this sucker. But I want to, you kind of like made your big staple, your first big splash, no pun intended, maybe right. A little bit. Maybe.
I cannonballed that thing, baby.
But on the Biggest Loser, and you have at your peak, you were over 500 pounds. Yep. Right. And you've lost over 250 pounds, give or take, right?
258 if I was at exactly 500. So now I've kept off almost 200 of it. So
that's incredible.
But it's been awesome. So.
Well, you were laid up with surgery and all that kind of stuff.
2 surgeries in 1 year sucked. That was for sure.
Absolutely. Well, the reason that I'm pointing all that is because life's all about persistence. Overcoming. Life's gonna hit, man. Life hits hard. Yeah. That's you wouldn't if it wasn't for God gives us hope to be astounded by joy.
Oh, I love that.
You know what I mean? So that's Pastor Roger Patton.
I
can't take credit for that one.
Yeah. But
I can imagine. Actually, I can't imagine leaving home at 14, and And you said at that time you were already 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Right.
I was over 300 pounds by the time I was in 8th grade. So.
You put on, so school probably wasn't fun. Maybe it was. You tell me.
It's interesting. I was the fat kid all the way up until football happened. And it was amazing how football changed my life. I think so many kids need football more than football needs kids sometimes. And when I became the football player, I went from being the fat kid to being the big guy. And there's a whole, like, being the big guy is great. Being the fat kid sucks. Yeah. But being the big guy is awesome. And it comes with a lot of perks. And, of course, everybody, they're like, you still have your jokes and stuff, but it's like, it's part of the community as opposed to you just being this outcast of like, when I was 230 pounds at 10 years old. When you're that big, kids don't know what to think. They don't even think that you're their age, right. And I kept thinking I was going to be, my uncle's like 6'6", another one's 6'8". I kept thinking I'm going to be as big as them. I kept getting bigger, but not taller. I don't know what happened. God's like 5'11" and 3/4. We're not letting you get to 6 foot unless I'm wearing shoes.
That's right.
But yeah, so it wasn't fun up until about 7th grade because I wasn't permitted to play junior pro football. I wanted to play bad, but there's a weight limit back then. I don't know if there still is, but there was a weight limit back then of 180 pounds.
It makes sense, but at the same time,
because you don't want somebody to get hurt, but it sucked for me, But I look at that and I think, I'm not allowed to be a featherweight boxer.
True.
Why? Because if I hit somebody, it might kill them.
That's right.
So, anyways, but it was one of those deals where it sucked up until got football, and then I was always blessed with a big personality, and even when I was the fat kid, I let everything kind of roll off my shoulders, even though I was really just tucking it deep inside.
Okay.
So it was kind of rolling off my shoulders and going into my pocket, I guess. And I didn't realize that it was hurting me as bad as it was because I would just laugh it off and make a joke about myself and kind of push it on. And then, eventually I'd make everybody else laugh and, still had a lot of friends, never was treated necessarily as an outcast as much as I saw myself there because I didn't look like anybody else.
Right. So, going back to talk about that, it's such honestly, man, you're such a fun person to be around. Like you're larger than life, like as personality wise, right? It's always a good time. Honestly, like I know a lot of people that have been around you that know you. Not one person has ever said, like, man, he's a drag to be around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I hope that I can always keep that going. I think for me, my mindset has always been like, there's always going to be something better. My mom made a lot of mistakes when we were kids. I was severely beaten as a child by my stepdad, not like once a week or like every day. We went through being scared to death that he was going to walk in, grab me and my brother up, hit us with anything from electric cords to, I've had a shovel handle broke. It was really a sling blade handle broke over my back. Like I went through a lot, and the one thing my mom did right was she kept us in church every single Sunday. Every single Sunday we were at that church. And so even though the devil was trying to sit there and beat me down and tell me that you're not worthy and you don't deserve things, on the flip side, I was getting all this life spoken to me. All the word of God was being spoken to me. And those seeds were being planted. And it says in the Bible that if you plant the seed at an early age, that even if they get away from it, they'll come back eventually, kind of like the prodigal son. And so the way I looked at it is even with all the stuff that was there, I still always had this hope. I always had this like, I'm going to do something better. And a big part of my story, and I've told it a lot. So I woke up one morning, I heard my mom screaming. I opened up the door. We was in this little trailer in the back of the woods in Tennessee. And I look through and I can see my mom laying there with my stepdad on top of her, bashing her head against the kitchen sink. Like it's a trailer. So it's like wood, cabinets or whatever. Blood's everywhere. I'm scared to death, but that's my mom. So I take off running. I'm going to go protect her. And as I get there, I'm able to get him off of her. And then he just grabs me and starts going to town on me. And she gets up and runs outside. Well, I'm able to break away and I run outside. And as I step on the front porch, I watch my mom put a gun to her head and pull the trigger. Now, she lived through it. She's still alive to this day. But as a kid, when you see something like that, there's no just get over it. You know what I mean? Like you don't really know how to handle that kind of thing. And I'll sit there and looked at it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I run down, I'm crying. My stepdad comes out, go inside, she's fine, And I go inside. Of course, there was blood everywhere because it was already bloody, so I didn't know, And I don't know if she had the gun aimed upward or, how it happened like it did. But either way, she is deaf in her right ear. But I go back inside and I'm sitting there with my brother and I'm just like, man, this ain't what it's like on TGIF. Right. When you watch Full House and Fresh Prince and all, all these families love each other and they care about each other and it's great, Why don't we have that, And I think a lot of my life, I thought that everybody had the same situation we had at home. I didn't realize there was something different. And when I started watching those shows, I'm like, man, why don't we have that?
Mm-hmm.
Where is that at? You know? Yeah. And I never forget my brother. He's 3 years older than me, and he said, "Well, that's just not what we were born into. You just have to play the cards you're dealt." And I'm like, "Nah, bro. I ain't gonna keep playing these cards. I'm gonna fold this hand and get a different hand." You know. Now I didn't say that at 10 years old, but when I look back on my life, thank God that I had the wherewithal and I had enough Jesus in me to go back and say, "There's something better for me." God didn't send His Son to die on the cross so that I could sit here and you know and have a miserable life. So, anyways, you know, I've always kept this positive attitude. Like, you know, things might be bad right now. You might be going through a season that's hard. You might be dealing with anything from financial troubles to heartbreak to, you know, drugs or whatever it is that you're going through. But there's something better if you're willing to go put in the work to get it. And I always say, one of my morning quotes when I do my motivational speeches in the morning is, "You're worth the things you're willing to work for." And I truly believe that if you'll go out there and you'll put it in, you can change your life, you know, but you got to do it, you know. And so I don't believe in the woe is me, poor me. Like, I believe in getting up and going to work and figuring it out. And I've always been able to keep that attitude. And I think that's what got me through. I think that's one of the things that made me the person I am today, is because I didn't let the devil win. And you were talking about a while ago, it's like there's no end to the mountain. Like, you start climbing a mountain and you think you're at the top. Well, at the top of that mountain, there's another mountain waiting on you. Right. And you don't know what it's going to be. And you might have a little valley for a while, but there's going to be something else come in. You know, I think about people that wake up and they find out they got cancer today.
Right.
They might have been living a healthy life. They might be exercising every day. They might be doing all the things right. And, oh man, you know, it's genetic. You got stomach cancer. He's, you know, Toby died from stomach cancer. Guy wasn't really ever super overweight. He was, you know, pretty healthy dude, played sports, you know, all this stuff. He didn't know he was going to get that, you know. And you think about how many people. My dad died at 43 years old. He was in pretty good health. He was a preacher. He ended up having a blood clot. He had hit his knee on literally scouting for turkey sign. He was climbing up on this tree, limb broke, fell through, hit his leg. Don't think much of it. Like any other guy, got up and walked it off, and he was fine. Well, his leg kept falling asleep, and he didn't realize that there could be caused from a blood clot. But he had got done preaching his sermon on Sunday night, and his sermon was about the angel of death. He said, "You got to be ready to go when it's your time, because you could leave here tonight and die in a car wreck." And he left that night and died in a car wreck. It wasn't until a month later or whatever, whenever the autopsy come back, that we found out that he had a blood clot, and that's the reason he wrecked. Because I thought it was odd. It was like 500 yards from our house. Well, his house. I lived there for about 2 years when I was a kid, but he wrecked, you know, and I feel like God said, "Hey, let me let it happen here so that you're not going to be walking through the house and fall dead in front of your kids," you know. But anyways, saying all that to say, I try to keep the positive attitude, because I know that the devil's going to have enough worries. What it said in the Bible is like, leave tomorrow's worries for tomorrow. Today has enough of its own to, you know, sufficient for today, you know. Yes. So let's just look at them and say, hey, whatever it is, we can get over it. We can get through it, you know.
I say this all the time. It's one of my favorite, let's just call it quotes, and it comes from my buddy Hunter Bledsoe. You'll love this one. Life is fair. Everybody's price is just different.
Ooh, yeah.
Right? That's it. So, you know, you've made it to stages that a lot of other people have made it to as well. Yeah. But boy, your price sure was different to get there.
Well, that's going to get me in a heart right there. That's going to get my tears flowing.
Yeah, man. There's Kleenex down below if you need them.
Hey, listen, I'm a crier. You ain't got to worry about that. I saw this, that goes along with that. I saw this interesting thing where they took all these kids and they were racing 100 yards for $100. But the premise was, before they started, they got to say, if both your parents are still married, take a step forward. If you never had to worry about, you know, the next meal coming on your table, take a step forward. If you never heard your mom and dad scream and yell, or you step forward. And so many of these kids, you know, they got to step forward all these times. They still had to run the same race for the same $100 that the kids that were left back on the starting line did. And I would have been one of the kids on the starting line, because every single thing they named off,
you couldn't step forward.
I couldn't step forward. And I thought that was just very interesting. But I also didn't stay on that line back there and just say, well, I can't win no matter what. I just started going. And even though it might have taken me longer, like you said, my price might have been a little bit higher, I wasn't going to use it as an excuse. And I think that's what happens right now, is so many people are like, oh, if I was born into a bad life, that's just the way it is. You know, you have to overcome whatever obstacles in your way. And I don't care if it's overweight, if it's the place where you were born, whether you were born in backwoods of Tennessee, meth lab kind of family, or if you were born in the inner city schools with all the gangs, or whatever it is that you were born into, it's still your responsibility to overcome it.
That's right. Man, that's so.
Woo, I'm going to start preaching for too long. Praise Jesus.
Come on with it. I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more. I was so excited to kind of to get to this place in the show with you, just because it's one, you can't hear it enough. Okay, you can't hear this stuff enough. But like, you know, my problems are my problems, and they're as big as I make them. Yeah. Okay, but in the big scheme of things, my problems ain't nothing compared to some of the problems you had. I grew up in a very happy, literally, Barnes Road is right over there. Yeah. You turn right on Barnes, turn left, first neighborhood is where I grew up. Right. All right. I used to drive my bike where we're sitting when this wasn't here. It was all woods and trails. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I grew up right from here. I grew up in a great middle class household. Happy childhood. Parents were together. It was amazing, right? Yeah. So like, for us to get like, look at how far you've gone. How old are you, Vinny?
41.
So
I look a day over 41 and a half.
Well, I'm 40. I'm 43, 44 this year. And, you know, so it's like, but look how far, so one could say, man, look how much Vinny's accomplished. I could say, look he's accomplished more than I have. Yeah. Yeah, because I've been here longer, and look where he's at, and he's doing a lot of things that I want to do, and so on and so forth. It's just basically at the end of the day, you took it upon yourself. Only you can fix your own problems instead of relying on somebody else, right? So, dude, that's fantastic. You mentioned Toby, and I asked him before we started shooting this. I was like, we lost Toby this year, and Toby was a great man. My dad was in the music business and had a lot of access to those guys. So. And the greatest stories about Toby, he wouldn't want you to tell. Yeah. Right? Why is that?
You know, he did a lot of charitable stuff, and most of the time for our military families. And I watched him one night do something that I won't say exactly what he did, but it was going to cost a lot of money to take care of somebody. And I watched him do it. And as soon as the publicist came over and said, hey, I need to get y'all's picture, and we need to put this out there, and we need to let everybody know. He's like, no, I didn't do it for that. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, we need to let everybody know this is a great thing. He said, yeah, but that's the great thing is for her. And it was amazing to me to watch him be that selfless, because I think a lot of people, you know, especially now with the internet being like it is, I think there's times when people will post, look at me, I'm giving to somebody that's less fortunate. Mm-hmm. And if it's to raise money to help more people that are less fortunate, I can be behind that. Mm-hmm. But if it's just to build your YouTube page or your Facebook or your TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is you're trying to build, and that's the reason you're doing it, because you know you can make more money. Yeah. It just hits me. And so the thing I love about Toby is almost everything that I ever seen him do was selfless. He was, I mean, a lot of people don't even realize this. Like Toby Keith, the music is worth $300 to $500 million, depending on which website you look at. Mm-hmm. But then there's Toby Koval, which is his real last name, that owns energy companies and all. I mean, he's a billionaire. He was a billionaire. And he treated every single person. Like if you came if you were working at his show, whether you were the local guy that was climbing the rigging or taking out the trash, all the way up to Toby Keith himself, you ate at the same. High Tops was his caterer. Every single meal, I mean, breakfast was a big old breakfast buffet. Every single meal, you know, lunch and dinner, they had some kind of bird, some kind of fish, and some kind of steak, cut of steak at every single meal. And everybody ate it. And if there wasn't enough food, he would send High Tops up to the store to go get more food and come back and put on a barbecue. Like he just took care of people, his band members, his people like us. I mean, just the things he did. And honestly, I mean, like he just did it because he always took things that he enjoyed. Right. So when he saw Trailer Car, Bobby Pinson, we talked about him a little bit earlier, not in this, but earlier in the lobby. Bobby Pinson brought him out to see us because Bobby loved us and thought we were this, you know, cool thing that was going on in town. And we were drawing a crowd, Trailer Choir was. And he walked in and saw us and literally said, well, I'm signing y'all to a record deal. And he goes and tells the record label, hey, we're signing them, get them on radio. And the radio guy at the time, I won't say his name, but he goes, I can't take that to radio. That's too wild. That's too outside the box. He goes, I'm not doing that. He goes, oh, you're not? He's like, no. He goes, okay. He goes, you don't have to. He goes, you're fired. Because like Toby is like, I want this because I believe in it. Mm-hmm. I'm paying your payment. That's right. And I'm giving you a great life. Jump in and do what I'm asking you to do. That's right. You know, and it was just amazing to me to see, like, I mean, he is the kind of guy that he just made his own rules. I mean, that's what he did. And he treated people great and he loved people. Like, I mean, I don't think he'll ever get the credit for that like he deserves, because a lot of people look at Toby's like he was kind of this strong dude, you know, and when you hear him talk and stuff, he had this dry sense of humor. I will tell you this story. Pretty cool story. I used to watch him. He would keep $100 bills in his pocket, and we would be walking into places and there'd be a lot of people around us, you know, and he'd pull his phone out or pull something out and drop $100 bill. Well, most of the time, probably 95% of the time, somebody goes, hey, you dropped this. And he goes, you keep it. It would have cost me more to bend over. It would have cost me more than for the time to bend over and pick it up than it's worth. Now, in his mind, that's funny, you know, it's like this dry. And they're like, well, that's kind of rude, you know, but he was really doing it because he was like, hey, I'm giving away $100. But here's what happened. The only time I think there's only one time I ever seen somebody pick up the money and try to get away with it and try to put it in their pocket. He didn't call them out. He didn't say nothing to them. We just got in the next room. He said, hey, that person out. And that always stuck with me because I'm like, it cost him. I asked him, I said, why didn't you get your $100 back? He goes, it cost me $100 to know that I didn't want that person around me. And I was just like, holy crap, dude, this guy was a genius. Business mind, you know, but always put his family first.
He was playing on another level.
Different level. Like, and the reason I think that I've always handled my music, you know, the way that I have, I obviously have never reached the levels even close to where Toby's at. But the reason I think that I've kind of managed to keep this thing going for 20 years is because I've implemented those things. I've always treated people good. You know, there wasn't a time that I was making, you know, there was a time that we made, you know, 30 grand a night. We always took care of our band. We always made sure they had what they needed. If they came to us and like, dude, I'm short on rent this month, we would take money out of our account to take care of them. Like we followed the exact same kind of guidelines that Toby set out for us. So
that's amazing.
Anyways, if you don't know about Toby or maybe you had an experience with him that you don't think was great because, you know, you caught him at I don't know, at the airport whenever because you hear these stories. I was at the airport and I tried to go up and talk to him. We might have been late for his flight.
That's right.
Which then Toby at the end,
we're all human too.
When we were with him, he wasn't flying commercial. He was flying private anyway.
That's right.
I was like, Toby, let me jump on that jet, bro. I didn't get to get on the jet, but it's fine. I was on the tour bus.
Well, you know, I was always with guys like that. I'm always amazed because it's so cool when you see somebody that's crazy successful in something like that, where you know it's full time to be somebody like that because he can't go anywhere. He's always going to get everything takes longer.
He told me that exact thing. He's like, I've reached a point to where I can't just go to the grocery store. He goes, and that's odd. He said, but I love being on stage. Like he loves so much getting up there and putting on a show. But he did reach that stage. I think about. Obviously, you look at Taylor Swift, which Toby signed Taylor Swift.
Yep.
But you look at Taylor Swift, like that girl can't have any kind of semblance of a normal life.
That's right.
Like there's nowhere in this world, not just in America, but in this world that she can go that people aren't going to be like, oh my gosh, that's Taylor Swift.
Yep, that's right.
So,
well, I've always been so amazed when you find out all the other things that they do. For me, there's so many. I dream huge, right, Vinny?
Yeah.
And so, like for me, the first step in figuring out how to do the next thing is how do I do that how do I find the time to do that but not take away from the time that I'm given elsewhere, right? So like, I have big ambitions, but none of those things can take away one more minute from my kids and my wife and family. So I want to talk to you about some of the things that really stuck out because, you know, a lot of people don't know that about Toby, that he invested in energy companies and all those things. And how did he even find the time to do that? Which he did that through delegation, right? And hiring the best people. But then, you know, I want to see how so it's 2-part question. First of all, what are some things that really stuck out to you about how to do that? And then 2, I know that family's huge for you, right? And so, how you've been able to take those things, not only for success in business, but also making sure that you're at home.
Yeah. You know, that's, it's been a juggling act to figure that out because it's like, you know, in my job, you have to trade time for money because you got to go be on that stage. You know, whether I'm hosting, auctioneering, playing a show, doing a fundraiser, you know, charity things, all the different things that I do, it requires my personality and me to be there. So I love doing it, you know, but nothing's going to be more important than, you know, I've been offered a couple of different little deals that would take me away, that would make me a lot of money, but it would take me away from my family. And it might be some of these things I might do in the next few years after my kids are at that point. We're like, okay, we get it. Dad's got to go make money. But right now it's like when my daughter's 4 years old, even when I'm just leaving for 4 or 5 days, she don't understand it.
Oh, dude. And like my daughter's 3. And like, so I had a big opportunity to go speak the week of Halloween.
Yeah.
It's going to pay real good and everything else. And it was just like, no, I can't. This is the first year it's really going to mean something to her.
I turned down a very nice show a couple of years ago because it's like it fell on how where I wouldn't be able to make it home in time to do our Halloween trick or treating and all that. I'm like, I hate to turn it down because I invest. So a lot of times people think, oh, Vinny's got the Buffalo River Resort and he's out playing shows and he must have all this money. And on a net worth level, I do, because it's like all of my things are worth a lot of stuff. But I keep my liquid cash pretty low because I'm trying to invest every time. Right. Every time I get money, I'm investing. So I'm out there still working. And the reason that I work as hard as I do is so that I can continue to invest so that one of these days my kids will not have to repeat the hours upon hours that I have to spend. Now, I still want them to work. I always want them to have everything that they need, work for everything they want. It's kind of the things that I've taken out there for my kids. But what I've discovered is like you said a while ago, delegation is so huge. Mm-hmm. You have to realize that you can either make all the money and be stressed all the time, or you can make some of the money and put other people in place making some of the money, and then your stress level can be way lower. And if you do that and repeat that with enough companies, it's like if I have my roofing company going and I have me touring and playing all that, that's always going to have to be me being there. But if I have that going, now me and Jared Blake own a little production company. We have a stage, all this. I went and hired a guy. Mm-hmm. Now, this guy's going to cost me $1,000 every time that thing goes out. Mm-hmm. But I know he's making good money now, and I don't have to even think about it.
That's right.
It goes out there. It comes back. He makes $1,000. Our company will make anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 after everything's said and done, and everybody's happy. Mm-hmm. Now, if I wanted to go and be the one that set up the stage and broke it down, did all this other stuff, I could make that $1,000 or keep that $1,000 in. But why would I want to do that whenever I can still make good money and not have to ever even spend a second on it?
That's right.
And so, I learned that with the Buffalo River Resort. I don't step foot in there to run anything. We have a manager. She keeps everything going. She checks in with us. Now, before she does any kind of big buy, like if we need to buy 30 or 40 new kayaks and it's going to cost, whatever money, she checks with us before she goes and does that.
That's right.
But she knows she ain't got to call me if we need, new doorknobs, light bulbs, if a washing machine goes out or what, she just goes and gets it. You got to go do it. So delegation has been a huge part of that, and understanding that, you got to let other people make money too. Don't be greedy.
That's exactly right. So let's stay on the finance piece for a minute, and then I kind of want to move to how you, I leverage, what I found, Vinny, is, at 40, my wife and I we had set a bunch of goals for 40. We hit them all at like 37. So at 40, we're sitting pretty. Everything's good. And I'm really diving in. Like, I'm really figuring out truly what my faith means to me, right? Yeah. So all this is going on. And then one day, I don't remember what was said or what caused it, but how, you literally are a fitness, I'm going to call you a fitness icon. I don't know how many people have lost hundreds of pounds, bro, like for real. And I've watched you bench press like 400 or 500 pounds the other day. It's incredible, Vinny. Yeah. But I'm telling you all that to say is, as a professional athlete, dude, I was in tip-top shape.
Oh, yeah.
When I took my shirt off day one in the locker room, I want everybody to know that dude worked.
You put in the work, son. That's right. I love that, yeah.
And but after I retired, well, that went to the wayside in a hurry, and literally 50, 60 pounds.
To the wayside and the waistline.
That's right. After Fat Nick decided that wasn't going to be a thing, and then it was just going to be average Nick for a while physically. Yeah. So what I figured out is I would always set the goal. I'm going to have the abs. I'm going to have all these things. And then I'd get to a spot where my clothes felt good. I felt good enough.
Right.
And good enough was good enough.
Yep.
Okay. And I found that I was doing that in my faith. I found that I was doing that in my fitness. I found that I was doing it in my finance and my businesses and everything. So I had that breakthrough. And it was my breakthrough in faith, that allowed me to finish.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk about the finance portion first, though, because for me, I didn't understand. I could make money, but I never had any, and I definitely didn't know. 2022 was the first year my wife and I made more money not working than we did working.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Right? Beautiful thing. You like that feeling.
Oh man. But we don't get, and the reason is because I believe money's a great tool. I believe if you're a good person, money can allow you to be a great person. If you're a bad person, it'll probably make you a worse person. Yep. So talk to me about growing up where you grew up, you didn't get taught a lot about money. How'd you learn about money? How has that changed what you've been able to do? How have you been able to use it as a tool to give back?
Well, I think, one of the things is money has never been my driver. To me, money is it's something you have to have in order to move on to the next thing. The reason that I work is because I want to have more time.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that I'm trying to put all these things in place because I want to have more time with my kids, more time with my wife, more time that I can do the things that I enjoy. Now, I happen to enjoy what I do for a living, which changes it for people. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard sometimes when you're sitting there like, well, man, I because I get offered shows all the time and I have to look at them like, I don't really make any money, but man, I'm going to have a blast going to do that. And like, so I have to sit there and I'm like, but I'm going to leave my family for an entire weekend to go do it. But no, for me, it was, I had to go and crash. You had to go crash, man. I was making all this money. I mean, we were probably making $250,000, $300,000 a year a piece when Trailer Choir was booming, which where I come from, I mean, Perry County, I think the average household is $40,000 a year, $42,000 a year.
Well, so what time frame was that? That was a lot more money back then.
Yeah, it was 2007 to 2010, 11. 2011 is when I went on Biggest Loser. So 2007 to 2011, we were making some good money and doing well for ourselves. And I didn't invest any of it. I took all my friends out. We all lived in a house that I paid for. I paid for all the groceries, the food, all this other stuff. I had, 2 guys in there that were actually paying $500 a month on the rent, but I bought this old church over in West Nashville from my buddy Jay Nelson. And I put king size beds in every room, 50 something inch, flat screens on every wall, big old 60, whatever it was, inch TV, which was the biggest one they had at the time in the living room. I had billiards tables. I had my own blackjack table, my own roulette wheel. I had all this. I was like, I'm decking this thing out. And I just spent the money just as quick as I make it. But I always thought, kind of like I think a lot of athletes do, that money's never going to stop coming in. I'm only going to make more money.
That's right.
And when we got plans, sometimes we sit there and tell God our plans. He laughs at us and says, I got a different plan.
That's right.
But I'll never forget the moment that it all hit me. I was making great money. We opened for ZZ Top at Sturgis, which was freaking cool.
Yeah, dude.
And it's the Buffalo Chip, 60,000 bikers there, revving up their motors. Look over, Billy Gibbons is sitting there on the side of the stage, like giving me the thumbs up. Get done. He's like, man, y'all are entertaining. I was like, it was a moment that will live in my brain forever. I can paint the picture right now. And then I go get on the bus and I'm like, well, now what do I have to look forward to? I look forward to that week so much because I'm like, dude, I grew up listening to ZZ Top. In a million years, I didn't think I'd ever get to be even in music. It wasn't on my agenda. It kind of just happened for me because I was out putting in work, but it wasn't even on my mind. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to write songs. That was it. I just happened to be one of a kind, 500-pound guy that could do the worm and the splits and backflips, and nobody else could do what I did. So we ended up getting this record deal, and I met Butter, who was a great songwriter. But I was sitting there, I was like, well, you know what I'll do? I'll go to L.A. And I decided I was going to go to L.A., and I was going to meet with, what's her name? Cindy Fairley Gessner. Cindy Fairley is the Fairley brothers' sister. Okay. Which is, they did Kingpin, Dumb and Dumber, something about Mary. The list goes on and on. Phenomenal comedy movies, and especially at that time, they were the number one. And I happened to get introduced to them by a woman we had written songs with named Sue Sandberg. She introduced me to her, said, hey, she's a great lawyer if you ever need anything in L.A., and she loved what we were doing. So I'm sitting here like, dude, I got the direct in to these. So they're filming Dumb and Dumber 2. So I said, hey, I want to be in Dumb and Dumber 2. It's my favorite movie of all time. I want to be in. Now, this is the first time they were going to make it before Jim Carrey bailed the first time. And so she was like, yeah, come on out. I'd love to, meet you in person. I never met her in person, just over email. I go out there and I kind of share my story with her, and I do the worm, and I'm like, look at me. I was still in that phase of my life of everything I was doing was because I wanted to prove to people that I was worthy. And I get done. She goes, oh, your charisma is great, and I love your story, and your personality is huge, and all this. And I was like, yeah, that's right. And then she goes, but, and I was like, huh? She's like, if you want to be in movies, she's like, right now at 500 pounds, I didn't know how much I actually weighed then. As big as you are is what she said. You're probably just going to be the fat guy that walks through in a Speedo, or the guy that, gets made fun of at the party, or they use for some kind of prop gimmick. And she goes, and you can be in movies and you can probably make good money. She was like, but I think with your personality and who you are, I'd love to see you be more than that.
Wow, that's cool.
And I was like, well, I definitely want to be more than just the prop or the gimmick. I go, what do I need to do? She goes, well, you probably need to go lose a couple 100 pounds. I was like, what about Chris Farley and all these? She's like, they were way smaller than you.
Wow.
And I didn't realize I was that big. I thought I was the hottest guy in the world. I swear to you, if Brad Pitt would have walked in back, hey, number 2, get behind me, which was good because if he got behind me, nobody could see him. You know what I mean?
That's right.
But I thought I was the best looking. I thought I was the coolest, and I wasn't cocky or rude to people. I just had this high self-confidence in who I was on the outside. Now on the inside, I was fighting all these demons that I didn't even realize I was fighting. But So I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, well, I got to lose some weight. I'll do that, but how am I going to be Bigg Vinny if I'm not huge, And I didn't realize that 300 pounds is still a big dude. So, just so you know. But anyway, I went out there, auditioned. She told me to go back and lose some weight. I'm sitting there literally that night. I'm like, man, I got to lose this weight. I don't know what to do. I was like, I got to fly home. In 2 days I had to fly home. I was like, I had this knot come up on my leg. And I'm like, what is wrong with my leg? It was hurting like crazy. I started coughing a lot. I was like, what is going on? I started getting sick. I'm like, man, I'm getting sick. But I couldn't figure out the knot on my leg. So I got a WebMD. Of course, WebMD's like, it's cancer, You're going to die tomorrow, And I narrowed it down. I thought, well, I got a hernia. That's what I thought I had. It wasn't hernia. I flew home Super Bowl Sunday. Steelers are playing against the Packers. At the time, Aaron Rodgers was pretty close in the country music world because he was dating Hillary Scott.
That's right.
From Lady Antebellum. So, we had already become friends. I had his phone number. I'm excited. I text him. I was like, I know you probably won't see this today. But I was like, I got to get home. I got to make my cheese dip, all this other stuff. Well, I landed. My leg was just killing me. And who became my first wife was my girlfriend at the time. She made me go to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And we got there and she's like, get out and go in the emergency room. So I finally, after arguing for a minute, I go in there and I was like, I got to get this done. I got a hernia, sew it up. I got to get back to my football, to my party. And so the doctor walks in and she's like, yeah, you ain't got a hernia. She's like, we're going to run some tests. She comes back and she goes, you're diabetic? I'm like, I did not know I'm diabetic. She goes, yeah, your blood sugar is like 500 and something right now. She goes, and your A1C is over 10 or 12 or whatever it was. She goes, you're diabetic. And I was like, okay. She's like, we're running some more tests. She goes, well, she comes back. That big old knot on your leg is cellulitis, and it's being caused because your blood sugar is so high. It's feeding this bacteria in your body. And if you'd have waited 2 more days, we probably had to cut off your leg because it would have became gangrene.
Holy cow.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, holy crap. I wasn't expecting, to get that news. Mm-hmm. So she's like, I was like, so, what do I got to do? She goes, we're going to surgery right now. Next thing I know, I'm back there. They got me passed out. They're digging this massive, what do they call basically an ant farm, out of my leg. And then I'm sitting there. I was in the hospital for 6 days. I didn't let anybody know. I was so embarrassed. And I have a really funny story I can't tell you on here. But anyways, whenever you get pumped full of fluid, and it was all the way down here by my stuff, the fluid has to go somewhere. Mm. And it was to my stuff there. So it got to be like this big.
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, I felt good about myself for a second.
Yeah.
But anyway, I literally was sitting there on like the 5th day, and I get a call from a girl named Dana DeSilvio, who was a girl that I kind of dated. We were really just friends, but you probably remember Dana from back in the day. She used to be at Decades and stuff. And she goes, Vinny, they're auditioning for people for Biggest Loser. I want you to go. Now, she don't know that I'm in the hospital mad at myself for getting myself here. I'm like, I want to go to that stupid show. They make fun of fat people. I ain't going there. I was like, get off phone. I sit there, think about it, call her back. And I'm like, hey, what do I got to do to audition for that show? I literally was sitting there like, I can't believe she's going to call me about some stupid reality show when I'm trying to figure out how to lose 200 pounds. And, God's always, he's always putting you in places that you didn't even realize. And, and then I end up auditioning, getting the part, and I'm going out there, I'm thinking, dude, this is going to make me huge. I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to lose the weight. Everything's happening the way it's supposed to. And I thought it's going to make me more famous. It's going to do all this, which it did for a little bit. But when I got out there and I started the journey, and I know I hate that word for lack of a better term, the journey. But when I started the journey on my weight loss deal here, I got about half a mile into that first run. And I realized, I'm like, dude, you ain't here to get more famous. You ain't here to up your cred or do any of that other stuff. You're here because you're going to die if you don't change your ways. And the doctor told me I wasn't going to make it to 30 if I didn't go lose weight.
Wow.
And I'm 41 now. So, I was 27 then.
Dude, that's incredible. The Hit Streak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the HitLab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more. Talk to me a little bit about how you're a big man of faith, and we talked a little bit about how, like, especially as a husband and a father, right? We have a job to do to prepare our kids for life, raise them in the view of what we believe basically raise them in the view of Jesus, right? So we want them to be more like Jesus. So talk to me a little bit about how you've been able to leverage your faith to push through those things, and how it's been for us, it's a staple of our household.
The devil is always trying to find a way in, whether it be through our TVs, our social medias, content that our kids are getting fed that we don't even realize, like little, it's just these little cuts, what is it, the death by 1,000 cuts?
Yes.
So it's like these little cuts like, it's no big deal. So what if that cartoon character is dressed up like a woman and it's a man? So what if they have a non-binary kid in this thing? You don't think about it because they don't even know what they're looking at.
Right.
So what if they have two, people kissing on the camera and on the situation? It's like, these are kids.
Yeah.
They don't understand. So when you do that, you're just propagating just little bits at a time that shouldn't be a big deal, right? It doesn't seem, I don't care if a guy and a guy kiss every single day. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't change my life.
Right.
But if my kid grows up thinking that's okay and that's normal and that's what way it should be, I have to let him know, like, hey, you're made to be with a woman. Mm-hmm. God intended it for you to be with a woman. Now, we don't hate people. That's right. We don't hate anybody. They can be whatever they want to be and do whatever they want to do, but I don't want you to grow up thinking that it's okay for you to do this or okay to do that. Now, if it comes down to that, if my son ever ended up being gay, I'd love him just like I love him right now. Nothing would change in that. But the fact of the matter is, like, I want you to see the wedding, the love between a woman and a man, the way God intended it. I want you to grow up seeing that. So last year, for example, when I say that the devil tries to sneak it in, my son goes to school and there's a movie that we don't let him watch because it has the first openly non-binary character in a Disney movie or in a cartoon period. And he knows he's not allowed to watch it. We let him know. And we told him the reason he's not allowed to watch it. So at school, they have a substitute teacher and she decides to put on this movie. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say the movie because I don't want it to get any kind of clout. Mm-hmm. So she says, I'm going to put on this movie. And my son stands up in front of the whole class and says, hey, I'm not allowed to watch this movie.
Good for him.
And the teacher says, why can't you watch this movie? He said, well, my dad, I'm Bobby Boucher's mom, I guess. He goes, my dad says it's got the devil in it. And she's like, let me check it out. And she goes and she pulls it up online what the controversy would be and sees that it says, about the non-binary, like people can find it controversial because the non-binary character and all that stuff. And then she says, that's not the devil. It's fine. You can watch it. My son put his head down on the desk, didn't watch it. The first thing he told me when he gets in the car, Dad, I got to tell you, I did not watch this movie. I just want you to know they put it on today, but I put my head down on the desk and I didn't watch it because I know I'm not allowed to watch it.
How old was he?
He's kindergarten. He's 6 years old. And I was like, well, what movie? And he told me the movie. And I was like, what got me wasn't that they watched the movie. It was that she told him that what I said wasn't correct. Yeah. And that it was okay. And she was giving my son permission to do something that I said he couldn't do. Yeah. And he put his head down, didn't watch the movie, and he was very upset about it. So I had fire in my eyes. I was going up to that school the next day. I was about to light somebody up. Well, we get a message on our parent app, literally like, I don't know, an hour before I was getting ready to head up there that next morning. Mm-hmm. And it just says, it was from the teacher. Guys, I just heard that there was some things that happened yesterday. So this was just one incident that happened. Apparently there was other stuff that happened that day. And she's like, I just want y'all to know I apologize. That teacher will never be invited back here, for the X, Y, and Z, because they have a list of things that are approved. And we have to, as parents, we can approve them. Right. Well, after the movie's over, she put on The Simpsons. I love The Simpsons. Sure. I can look at The Simpsons and know what's real, what's fake, what should be and not be. I can do that because I have a human, or an adult thinking brain that can decide right from wrong for myself. Mm-hmm. But kids, you're teaching them right now. Yeah. Up until they're, I guess 25 is what they say now is when your brain, for a man really starts to get fully developed. And so, for me, I wanted him to know, like, we don't hate anybody. We love every single person. Everybody has our love and respect, and it's theirs to keep or theirs to lose. You don't have to earn my respect. You don't have to earn my love. You have it from the second I meet you. And if you told me, hey, I'm gay, I'd be like, cool, I still love you. No big deal.
Well, it's not our job to judge anyway. That's between them and them and their God. Right? That's right.
And so, but I feel that way. And then, I've had to have this because I'm very open about who I am, what I believe, and all that other stuff. And I've had to defend myself on the fact that, like, hey, I love you, even though I think that you're committing a sin. The same way that I love my buddy who cheats on his wife. That's right. The same way that I love my friend who gambles all of his money away. The same way that I love my friend that's a drunkard. I don't look at them and I don't condemn them to hell. Only thing I do is pray for them. I have my own sins. I got my own mess ups and my own mistakes. So just because I call what you're doing a sin doesn't mean that I want less for you or that I think that I'm better than you. It means that I think that just like you're committing a sin, I commit a sin, and I don't judge you for your sins. Now, I always say this, I can forgive you for any sin. I can get over it. even up to murder, depending the circumstances. Now, if you just cold-blooded went and murdered somebody just because it was fun to you, I think we got to exercise some demons.
Yep.
Except for pedophilia. I can't let you go on that one.
I agree.
Anything you got something going on with pedophilia, like I'm cool if they say, hey, you know what? One strike and you're out,
Well, it's just because it's the ultimate form of taking advantage of somebody that's not like, you know what I mean? There's just...
And I think you look at circumstances. Like we had a situation when I was in school. They hired a coach who was 22 years old. He had literally just graduated college, brought him in to be a coach, and made him a high school teacher. Well, these girls are 16, 17 years old. He's 22. It's like he should know better morally not to go mess with those girls. But his brain isn't developed past, I was just in high school a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think in that situation, you're not trying to condemn that guy to hell or put him in jail for life. Now, if he took something from him, then sure, But I think when you got this 40-year-old dude trying to hit on a 12-year-old, a 8, 9, I mean, like, nah, bro. Like we take you up and we take you out, and then let God deal with you in the afterlife.
That's right.
But anyways, like I said, I will, I don't ever want to turn it into, bad stuff. I always want everybody to know, like, hey, I love you. And I ain't afraid to sit here and have this talk with anybody in the room. I'm never shy away from that, on the way I feel, the way I believe, and the person that I am. But I also want you to know, like, I'm going to raise my kids, and as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to make mistakes, because trust me, I've made plenty of them. It doesn't mean that I ain't going to let something slip in every now and then, because I've let it. My son, he's taught me, hey, Dad, let's watch that Batman under the Red Hood. I'm like, well, I do love Batman, as you can tell.
That's right.
I'm not saying I am Batman, but what I'm saying is you'd never see me in the same room as Batman. That's all I'm saying. But anyways, I've let little things slip in that I shouldn't have let slip in. And then I sit there later on that night, I'm like, there's a lot of violence in that. I shouldn't let him watch that. Mm-hmm. But I made that decision for my kid.
That's right.
So I'm okay with me making a decision and then owning up to my mistake. And I went to my wife and said, hey, because my wife's, I'm talking about conservative. My wife is conservative.
Come on.
She definitely was like, if she would have saw what we were watching, she'd have been like, nah, bro, you take your butt and sleep outside tonight. Mm-hmm. She would never say that to me. But I did go tell her, I was like, I probably shouldn't have let him watch that. I feel kind of bad, that I let him watch it. I said, now my son's not scared of anything. If you ask my son, are you afraid of him? No. Why not? I got Jesus in my heart. That's what he'll tell you. I have a video of him saying it when he was 2.5 years old. And I'll show it to you because it's a great video. But anyways, my point being is I will make my own mistakes with my kids. I don't need you also making mistakes with my kids.
That's right. That's exactly
I don't know
right.
if we got on the tangent I wasn't supposed to get on, but either way, that's the way I feel, and I love you all no matter what, but don't mess with my kids.
Absolutely. Well, as parents, we choose what and when we expose our kids to certain things. Yeah. That's our job. We're responsible for them, and there's a lot of kids that don't have people that are responsible for them. Right. So for the good Lord, like when you got parents that are responsible, let them do their thing. Yeah. You don't have to get in the way, right? You don't have to get in the way. Just let them do their thing. Let them rock and roll, and let them be the parents they want to be. Because it's freaking hard being a parent.
Yeah. That was my wife right there. She's like, can we drop the car in the morning? I'm supposed to take it to the Ford dealership. No, it is. It's hard being a parent, and you're going to make mistakes, and you have to have a lot of forgiveness. I think in this world, I wrote a song called I Can Live Forever in a song. And it says, always give forgiveness, especially for yourself or to yourself. Because I think so many times, man, like I've forgiven my stepdad for all the things he did to me. I just look at it and say, you know what?
That's beautiful.
I've been able to, and this is something I practiced. I put myself in his situation. And I said, what has that guy been through? He's been through Vietnam. He's been through all these bad things. We didn't even know what PTSD or PTS was back whenever we were kids, So this guy beat the crap out of me every single day of my life. I was scared to death, every single day of my life. There wasn't a time that I woke up that I wasn't like, now on the flip side, if he was in good mode, he'd get us down on the floor, wrestle with us, play with us, teach us, taught me how to hunt, taught me how to fish, taught me all these great things. Watch Three Stooges, laugh our butts off, all this. But in a half a second, he could turn in, it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yeah. But I was able to put myself in, and the reason I was able to do that, when I was on Biggest Loser, Biggest Loser helped me so much more than just the weight loss. When I was on Biggest Loser, the head doctor came to me, Dr. Hogan. I just call him Hulk every day. He come to me, he goes, Vinny, we need to talk about what's your issue with your mom. I'm like, I ain't got no issue with my mom. I love my mom. My mom's great. My mom's a huge personality like me when she's up. But when she's down, she's all the way down. You may not see her for 3 weeks. She'll stay in the bed. So I was like, I love my mom. My mom's awesome. And he's like, well, he goes, according to this test that we had you take beforehand, which I didn't even know, it was just, they asked us a bunch of random questions, like, and I guess they ask you the same question like 7 different ways, and then they judge on how you answer it. So according to this, you love women, you respect women, but you don't trust women. I was like, I didn't write that down anywhere. He's like, no, but the way you answer the questions, you know, it calculates it, blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, well, I said, I'm fine. My mom's great. He goes, okay. Well, he knew when you get out there and you break down those physical walls, and I never forget, it was week 3. It was NFL week. Tim Tebow came and worked out with us, and he spoke. And I was a fan of him, but I wasn't allowed to be because I was a Tennessee guy, you know, I'm a Vols guy. So liking a Florida Gator was pretty tough for me, but you couldn't not like the guy, you know? Yeah. So he came out, he was out there. We had Drew Brees, we had Clay Matthews, Eric Dickerson, Sean Merriman. Like, I was just pumped because I love football, you know? So I'm sitting there looking at guys that I grew up watching, and then other guys that I'm like, dude, I could have been on that field with you, you know? And then Tebow, I think, was a few years younger than me anyway. But we sit there and we have this conversation, and I'm energized, and now I'm kind of walking on the treadmill, and I'm physically beat up. Literally, we boxed Tim Tebow, and the dude can hit. Just letting you know, if you think you can whoop Tim Tebow's ass,
not happening.
Most likely you can't. So, he would probably never try to hurt you, though. But anyways, I'm sitting there walking the treadmill, and they come over and they start talking to me. It's like, you know, tell us about your mom, and, you know, what happened when you were a kid. And next thing you know, I'm just out there I'm just letting it all come out, you know. And then, of course, I caught myself and started to cry. And then they had to, you know, and I tried to like pull back. And then they re-asked the questions again and tried to get more, you know, they're trying to get different reactions from me, which is behind the scenes stuff. So anyways, then we get done. And then the head doctor comes over to talk to me when the cameras are off. And he starts asking me about this and that. And I was like, you know, I said, he goes, man, you really, in order for you to lose this weight and keep it off, you're going to have to forgive your mom. I'm like, why should I forgive her? This woman watched me get brutally beat every single day of my life. She kept me in that. Why should I forgive her? And he's like, I can understand that. He goes, but you're a Christian, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, why should God forgive you for putting his son on the cross? I'm like, I didn't put him on the cross. He goes, you ever commit a sin? I said, yeah. He goes, you ever ask for forgiveness for it? I said, yeah. He goes, you might as well put those nails in his hands yourself then, buddy. And I was like, whew. And I was like, well, that's fine. He goes, here's what I want you to do. He goes, you're not going to be able to forgive her today. You know, this is going to be a new concept to you. He goes, but I want you to tell me right now, what happened in her life? Why was she okay with that happening? And I was like, well, I said, when she was 3, her mom died giving birth to my Aunt LaWanda. Her dad left, and she was left there with my grandmother, who was a seamstress for Mary's Bridal. Sewed wedding dresses every day. Never was really at home. Went to, you know, they were dirt poor, like literally had dirt floor in the house. Like when I say dirt poor, like literally, not like people say, yeah, I grew up poor. No, dirt floor in the house. Grew up super poor on Marsh Creek, Tennessee, little 800 square foot house, cinder blocks, you know, like I said, dirt floor on one side, and the other side had a regular floor. And I said, she got pregnant by the time she was 15, had me by the time she was 18, my sister by the time she was 19. So by 20 years old, she's raising 3 kids.
Wow.
You know, and, you know, she had already went through 2 divorces and all that kind of stuff. He goes, so by 20, she's lost her mom. She's had no really anybody there in her life, you know, that was consistent. She's gotten pregnant. She's, you know, not seen herself as any value. She has 3 kids. Now she's got to raise 3 kids at 20 years old. He goes, let me ask you this. Did your stepdad beat her up like he did you? And I said, every single day. He goes, okay. So what you've told me is you're going through this same thing that she's going through, but she's had all this other stuff that's went on in her life as well. He's like, and she's, you know, 25, 26, whatever years old at the time. I guess by that time she would have been, 29 because I was 10. You know, when the bulk of stuff happened, I was between 9 and 12, I guess, whenever he got his worst.
Gosh.
It was tough. And you know, you're old enough to know that something bad was happening, but you weren't old enough to do anything about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And he said, maybe she was doing the best she could do with what she had. He said, do you have a roof over your head? I said, yeah. He said, do you have food in your belly? I said, yeah. He said, so maybe she thought the only way she could keep a roof over your head and food in your belly is by staying with this man who could provide those things. He's like, maybe she was too scared to leave because she was afraid he might do something even worse. He's like, so it's not always as black and white as we'd like for it to be, as cut and dry as you'd like for it to be. And he goes, but I want you to think, what's the moment that you feel like you really harbor all these feelings? And I thought about it for a long time. And it was the day that I decided to move in with my dad. I had gotten a fight at school with a kid, and he hit my sister, and I tore him up pretty good. And we ended up getting a doctor bill. and had to pay it. I got in really bad trouble. I ripped his lip basically from the corner of his mouth down to like here, and it was like stitches. And of course, the parents overreacted. I won't say they overreacted. I whooped the hell out of it.
Yeah.
But he hit my sister, so I felt vindicated in what I did. But I was grounded, and I had left the house, and my stepdad was gone, and my mom was gone because they leave us at home by ourselves all the time, even at like 7 years old. But I went out and I went to my neighbor's house and I went squirrel hunting because I wanted to go squirrel hunting. So here I am, 10 years old, 11 years old. I guess I was 11 at this time, running through the woods with a gun with my neighbor kids, which sounds bad. It sounds worse every time I tell it. But we get done and come out, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get home. Well, about the time I'm headed home, he's coming up the driveway. Mm. And I think at the time our curfew was 6, even if I wouldn't have been grounded. Our curfew was 6, and it was like 6:04. And I thought, I'll get home before he gets there. Well, I hear the truck, and always it was a black Silverado, had a big old camper thing on the back, and I can remember the sound of the engine coming up behind me and the gravel crunching underneath the tires. I could hear it all. And he gets up there beside me, reaches over, pushes the door open, get in. Now, our driveway was probably a quarter mile from our house to the next house, so it was pretty deep into the woods. And I get in, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, I just went squirrel hunting. He goes, "You're grounded. You're not supposed to be going anywhere. You cost me X amount of dollars for all that, medical bills." And I said, "Yeah, no, I know I'm not supposed to be." I said, "But I didn't think you'd mind because y'all been gone all day. And, I just kind of got bored sitting in the house." And, he was like, "You're not supposed to do anything. So you directly disobeyed me." And I'm like, I know. I'm sorry. He goes, "Yeah, you're sorry. You're a sorry mother." Started calling me everything, "You worthless fat." He always talked about my weight and everything, and which ended up being a trigger for me a little later, but on different parts of my life. But he said all this just really bad stuff to me. And finally I was like, "Just let me out. Just let me out. I don't want to be with you." And he reaches over and he grabs me by the back of the neck and puts my head against the dash. Now he's driving. He's got my head held against the dash, and he's just cussing me, telling me everything that's wrong with me. And I get out of the car and I take off running. I was going to run back to my neighbor's house, and I was going to call the cops basically. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know what to do. I just, knew I had to get away from him. Well, I couldn't run very fast. I was, at this point, 230, 240 pounds, and I was a kid. And he caught me, and my mom had not gotten home yet. Well, most of the time when he did his beating to us, we was never really in front of my mom. A few times, but never like these brutal. But this one, he's on top of me, hits me, breaks my nose, blood's going everywhere. I'm sitting there, I'm screaming and crying and trying to keep him off of me. And she pulls up in the driveway, and he gets off of me, and I get up and I run over to her. And I get by her side, and she looks at me and she goes, "What did you do to him?" And I thought she was talking to him. She goes, "To make him do that to you."
Oh, Lord.
And I was like, it's hard for me to get over that.
Yeah.
It's hard for me. Like, you're the one that's supposed to protect me. Like the one people. And it got, honestly, I forgave her while I was on the show. And I had a relapse of unforgiveness whenever I had my own kids.
Okay. Because
my level, there's not, you hurt my kids, I'm going to jail.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing I won't do to keep my kids safe. So I'm sitting there thinking like, why did you not love me like that? And then as I was able to put myself back in her perspective, like, oh, she was on drugs and she didn't have the same life that that I've had. She hasn't gone and learned from the same mentors that I've learned from. Cause there's a old saying, I can't remember who, I think it was, the song was by, Matt Kennon. And it said that blood is thicker than water, but love is thicker than blood.
Oh, I love that. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's a great song, and I don't know if it ever became a big hit, but it was just one of his songs that I like. And we came out about the same time on radio. But for me, in my life, I have so many great family members that I love and that I'm really close with. But my biggest mentors in life, the people that have taken me under their wing, the people that have been there for me, have never been blood related to me. Now, my Granny Belle, as a kid, she taught me how to be a good person.
Right.
Can never replace that. There's nobody who ever replaced my Granny Belle. My dad, who I didn't really get to know, I started being around him when I was 8. Really didn't get to move in with him until that day after that happened with my mom. I said, you know what? I went in and I called my dad. I said, I need you to come get me. This is what just happened. And he shows up with my Uncle Richie and has a gun with him. And he looks at Randy and says, "You ever touch my son again, I'll kill you." And Randy, without missing a beat, goes, "Well, you better hope you hit me with the first shot." Not he's unscared, unscathed by anything, which, like I said, he was in Vietnam and he claimed to be a Navy SEAL, but I had to go get that checked on, and he was not a Navy SEAL. He did go through whatever Hell Week and that kind of stuff, but he never, I can't remember what it was, but he never actually became a SEAL.
Got it.
He made it through the stuff to become a SEAL, which is, I guess, why he always said he was. But there was some, I don't know if it was some of his eyesight or something was wrong that he couldn't become a SEAL. But anyway, regardless of any of that, I was able to forgive her and I was able to put things in perspective. And now in my life, I use that same tool with anything I'm dealing with. I'm like, well, hang on before I jump the gun on something, because I'm a reactive person. You know, a lot of people are responders. I'm a reactor. Like you say something that makes me, want to speak up. I'm going to speak up. Now I'm not going to immediately speak up and be mean to you. I'm like, well, hang on a second. Let me ask you this question. That's who I am, because I'm going to always, kind of say what I do. But I've learned in my life now that sometimes it's better to respond other than react. So spend just a little bit of time saying, okay, why do they feel the way they feel? Now, I used to get mad. There was the phrase they use a lot, and because I've always been like, what's the phrase? White privilege. Mm-hmm. So there was always this thing, white privilege. And my whole life, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I grew up in the middle of the woods getting the shit kicked out of me every day.
That Theo Von skit, that bit he does where he's like, give me some of that white privilege.
Yeah, let me have some of that white privilege. So I was so upset about it. And I just I couldn't understand why everybody kept saying this. And so I call Dolvet, one of the most successful black men that I've ever met, one of the most successful men, period, but he happens to be a black man. And he helped me save my life. He was my coach on Biggest Loser.
Okay.
And has become such a mentor to me and just somebody I look up to so much. And I called him. I was like, man, I just got to talk to you. I was like, I don't understand this whole white privilege thing. Like, I grew up with none of that. Like, nobody left me anything. There wasn't none of this. I was like, I don't understand why they think that just because you're white, it's easier for you. He goes, well, Vinny, he goes, I can understand why you feel that way. And he took his time and he responded. Because I'm sure part of him was like, hey, bro, slavery lasted for X amount of years. I'm sure he had, some things he wanted to say, but he took his time and he responded. And this is what he said. He said, it's overused. He's like, people will shout that out from the rooftops the second that they get a chance to try and not have to have a debate with you or a response with you. And they'll try to fire off racism or this or that. He goes, and I know your heart and I know who you are as a person. He's like, so here's what I would tell you. Having white privilege does not mean that you didn't have anything happen in your life that was hard. He goes, what it means is that your skin color wasn't one of them.
Mm.
And that just,
that's pretty good, dude.
I mean, it changed my whole thought, because I'm like, dude, I cannot think of a time. Now, I grew up in, maybe if I grew up in Cleveland in a predominantly black neighborhood, maybe my skin color would have cost me some more grief or hardships in life. But growing up where I grew up, my skin color never cost me a single thing.
It didn't.
And it never hurt me in any kind of way.
But your weight probably did. You could say skinny privilege.
Hey, listen, I ain't never seen anybody kicked off a plane because they were a certain color, or even if they smelled bad. And let me tell you something. I've sat on some planes where I'm beside some people like, boy, I wish they would have kicked you off the plane because you smell bad. Not because of color ever, but it was such a great thing to have that response, because it changed my outlook on it. And I just said, you know what? I said, I don't like that it's overused for things and people use it as an excuse to not succeed or whatever. I said, but I can honestly say that I can have a conversation with, my friends who are, who happen to be black. And I've been on some great conversation. Mr. D, Mr. D. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, I was like, have you ever dealt with that? He's like, man, he goes, there's been a couple of times. He goes, it very rarely happens, because there's been a couple of times I've been pulled over and I did feel that like this cop is intimidated, because of my color. He goes, and honestly, one of the times it was a black cop. He goes, it's not just, I don't think it's just a white thing or this, that, but these guys are used to being in certain neighborhoods. They're getting shot at every day. They're having all these things happen to them. So they're staying ready.
Yeah.
And if you look a certain way, they're going to think that you might be that. He goes, now it may not have been done to you. He goes, I wear dreads. I, kind of sag my pants. I'm, kind of more of an artistic guy, He goes, people will see stuff and they think they see whatever they see. He goes, if you saw something that looked like a black widow, you wouldn't go over there and pick it up and carry it around with you for a while.
Sure.
You'd probably be like, might want to touch that black widow. But what he told me was, he said there has been a couple times in his life when he's gotten pulled over. Once he was with Krista, who was his duo mate or trio mate in the farm. And he said they got pulled over and that they pulled him out of the car and then went back to her and said, hey, are you okay? Is he hurting you? And he goes, that really hit me weird, because I don't think they would have asked it if I'd have been a white guy that had just assumed we were together.
Sure. And
so I was like, okay, yeah, I've never had to deal with that kind of stuff. I've never walked into a store and thought people were following me around. However, Jared Blake, you know, before his hair magically reappeared, he was bald dude, tattoos everywhere, you know, like big, you know, whole sleeves and is up to his neck and the whole nine. I've watched people follow him around and be like, thinking he was going to do something bad, you know?
Sure.
And so I've never dealt with that, but I walk in looking like, you know, your typical dad, you know, or whatever. So it is amazing that people will judge you based off of the way you look a lot of times. And that's just part of life. You know, I mean, people judged me when I was fat and thought that I was fat, and, you know, fat and lazy go together, right? People always say that. Very rarely do you meet somebody that's fat and lazy, because if they're fat and lazy, they're probably staying at home.
That's right.
And if they're fat and lazy, they're probably sitting in their grandma's basement or whatever. Most fat people have a chip on their shoulder and they're trying to go out there and improve and do more and more and more than they should. Or look how good, you know, people used to always say to me, man, you dance so good for a big guy. I'm like, nah, I dance good for anybody.
That's right, baby.
I was like, it don't matter if I was big or what. But anyways, perspective in life can change everything. If you take time, it was a Tim Tebow quote. He said, perspective is a hard thing to gain and an easy thing to lose. And you think about that, man. We see things from our life. You know, my whole life, I grew up Perry County, Tennessee, you know, on the river. There might have been, I don't know, 3 or 4 black families in the entire community, really no Latinos. Like I only knew white people, you know, that's all I really knew. As I got older and I got out there in the world, I thought Los Angeles or California was Los Angeles. I didn't realize there's vast fields of amazingness, you know, than some of our greatest, you know, farmers and farmland and stuff like that. You know, I thought New York was New York City. And then you get up there and you see like, oh man, the northeastern part, you know, or even the northwestern over by the, was it the Great Lakes? And I was like, man, there's some beautiful, beautiful countryside up there. And you just don't realize that. And then I got up there and realized there was more rednecks in New York than there are in Tennessee. I was like, you got a car in your yard? You're in a trailer? I was like, you got like 17 kids running around barefooted, you know? But, you know, getting into the world and gaining more perspectives has helped me so much, because it changed the way I look at the world and the way that I view things. And I think that, you know, for most people, you only know what you know. And so it's hard to step out of that and step into somebody else's shoes and understand why they vote the way they do, why they feel the way they do, why they think the way they do. Because if you haven't lived their life, it's hard for you to have that perspective.
The Hit Streak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com. Dude, this is such a great conversation here, man. Like
I'll keep talking.
Oh my gosh. Well, and again, like, you know, first of all, you good on, you check your time. You okay right now?
Make sure,
double check you're okay. I got, I wanted to add a follow up to what you just said, but then I kind of had, as we bring the sucker to a close, kind of, you know, what's next and so on and so forth. But I wanted to, you said so much gold right there. It was just absolutely phenomenal, man. And so I was going to see, take that just a little bit further. So folks, hang with us here. This is fantastic. And I'll make sure and bring, we'll have, I talked to Vinny about this before, about bringing it back every year, just because it's we're only scratching the surface today.
Yeah. I mean, I got a lot to talk about.
You know, we're hour 13 in, and we're only scratching the surface. Let me ask you this, because this is, you know, forgiveness is like, first of all, Abraham Lincoln had a quote that was, "A house divided will not stand." Okay, that stands for your house, that stands for our country, that stands for everything, right? So, in regards to mom and stepdad, and I don't know a lot of the history, I'm learning today, just like everybody else is. Do you? And I don't know. I don't know if they're still living or anything.
Both are still alive.
Both are still alive. Do you still have? You've said you've forgiven them. Do you still have relationships with them?
I have a great relationship with my mom now, and talk to her a lot. You know, and she struggles with forgiving herself. You know, and I've talked her through that. I was like, Mom, I've already forgiven you. I was like, you know, I wouldn't change anything. People ask me all the time, if you could go back and change it? No, because I love my wife, I love my kids, I love my life. So I don't know that if I go back and I change that, would I have ended up in the same place I'm at? Right. You know, I think anybody asks, like, yeah, sure, I'd love to, you know, maybe I would have pivoted here and I would have made more money. But if that would have led me to not having what I have, then I don't want it.
That's right.
And so, you know, I work with her on that. I don't have a relationship with Randy, with my stepdad. I know where he's at. I keep tabs on him. I have love for him in the fact that he taught me a lot of things about being a man. He did, like I always say this, he hurt us really bad a lot. And my brother more than me, because I knew how to like shut up and work. Because when I say he worked us like slaves, we worked 10 and 12-hour days at 9, 10 years old out in the fields, picking corn, zucchini, squash, strawberries, tomatoes, black walnuts, peaches, pears, apples. That's what we did. It was a front because he had a wheat farm. They got busted with 7,000 plants of marijuana when I was in 7th grade. So, which he always thought I ratted him out, but I didn't even know. So, but anyways, and plus I wouldn't have ratted him out anyways. heck, it's seventh. I was in 7th grade. Not 7 years old. Anyways, he is in living in Hornwald. He's 70 something years old now. He's pretty much blind from all the drugs he did, his whole life. He's living a lonely life, and I don't want that for him. I want him to find God. I want him to have something in life that is good. I don't want the devil to win in that way, because I think, the devil's number one thing is if he can divide families, divide homes, if he can separate you and divide you, then he can get you alone. And once he gets you alone, he can talk to you about suicide. He can talk to you about doing bad things, with other people and to yourself. So I don't want that for him. I want him to have a good life. If he called me and said, "Hey, I need your help," I would go help him. I'm not going to take my kids around him, because I don't want them to, at this age at least, to know what their dad went through. Yeah. Because they're never going to experience that. And so explaining it, my son knows and has heard my story enough a little bit to know that, I had a rough childhood, but he doesn't know all that it entailed. And actually, nobody really knows all it entailed. I tell this story, but I don't go always into detail of how brutal it was, right. And that's really more for myself, the reason I don't go into it. Individually, I will go into it with people, especially if I'm speaking at a school and there's a kid that's going through it and they want to talk to me. I'll sit there and talk with them, and I'll let them understand kind of where I come from, so that they feel okay to open up to me about whatever it is they're going to. And we've stopped a lot of, me and Jared spoke at over 300 high schools, and we've stopped a lot of child abuse, sexual abuse, running drugs. I can't go into full details on it, but Jared spoke at a school. I wasn't with him on this one. And the kid came up to him afterwards and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you. I want to show you something, but I don't want to show the teachers because I'm so afraid I'll get in trouble." And he finally said, "Well, what is it?" And he says, "My parents are the biggest drug dealers where he was at. And they have me running drugs and selling drugs every day here at school, and they run them through my locker." She said, "In my locker right now, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of pills and all this other stuff." And he's like, "What?" They sure enough, they go and they open up, he goes in and says, "Look, we got to go get you out of this." She goes, "But you got to promise me I'm going to be okay, because I'm afraid they'll kill me." Oh, wow. And she was willing to talk to Jared. She wasn't willing to talk to a teacher. She wasn't willing to talk to a principal, but something in Jared. And I actually, Jared got to meet 50 Cent about 2 years ago. And he was talking about the kids program we do and all this other stuff. And he was signing a guitar for us to auction off for our charity and everything. And he said, "Do you ever speak in, urban schools or inner city schools?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I do surprisingly well in there." He goes, "I'm not really sure why, because I don't have a lot in common with that demographic." He goes, "Yeah, you do." He goes, "What do I have in common? I didn't grow up like that." He goes, "I don't have any stories that involve that. I don't listen to the same music. I don't have like a common connection." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Where I come from," he goes, "you got grandma and the drug dealer." He's like, "Grandma's trying to teach you right from wrong and preach Jesus into you, but she's broke. She ain't got no money and she ain't got no power. At least worldly power." He goes, "But the drug dealer's got money, power, drugs, sex, all this other stuff. And he's got this shiny thing over here that you think you want." He's like, "There's not he said, "You give a middle ground. You come in with your jewelry and your tattoos and your hard look, but then you're still talking about Jesus and you're still talking about doing good things and right." That's right. Because so you're giving them a middle ground, somebody they can talk to that they're like, "Wait a second, he has all that and he's still talking about God and doing all this other stuff." And that blew my mind. I was like, dude, I didn't get to meet 50 Cent. I was pretty upset about it, to be honest with you. But yeah, so that's like, we've got to do a lot of great things and go out there and help a lot of people. And I don't take that for granted. God gave you a platform. You got to go out there and do the right thing with it. Again, I'm not going to say we haven't made mistakes. I probably told too much of my story sometimes to younger kids that I probably should have been like, maybe I shouldn't have talked about the gun. But I was 10 years old when it happened. So sure. We're usually third grade is about as young as we go to speak. So okay, that's 10 years old, I think, 9 or 10.
That's a beautiful thing though, man. That's a beautiful thing. Well, like, we honestly, I could stay here with you so long. Like, dude,
for sure.
Vinny, like, I'm just like, folks, I've just been like drawn into this sucker. Like, I mean, I'm enjoying this sucker as much as you guys are when you hear it, man. Just first of all, thank you for sharing all this stuff. It's unbelievable, man.
Yeah. Well, I my goal has become, used to I was scared to share it. Not scared. I didn't want people to look at me as weak.
That's right.
So I didn't want somebody to know that I got my butt kicked. I didn't want somebody to know that, I was scared, because I'm a man, especially being a bigger, stronger man like I am. You didn't want people to think that of you. But I learned that, man, it takes a really strong man to go in and share your story. And the hopes is that it inspires somebody else or lets somebody else know that, hey, even if you're going through this, there's a way out,
Well, it's like I love what Roy Vaden says when he says you're most uniquely qualified and powerfully equipped to serve the person that you used to be.
That's fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it, man. So, well, like, we'll come back next time. I get you in here, we'll take it even a step further. Yeah. But before we bring this sucker to a close, I wanted to make a little bit of a shift and talk about what you got coming up next, right? I know you're doing you've done a lot in music besides performance and songwriting for other folks and everything else. So what's next on in the world for Bigg Vinny? How you wrapping up 2024 and it maybe even opening up 2025?
Yeah, so 2024 has been awesome. I mean, I've already got through a lot of great things as far as with the songs, big year for you. Speaking engagements, got through another surgery. 12 weeks of non-weight bearing in a cast is tough for me because I'm a goer,
Mm-hmm.
But I've got over that and kind of started back on my journey up. Goal this year is to get under 300 pounds on a health goal is to get under 300 pounds and kind of get back to a little bit more leaner version. So I'm pulling back on all the super heavy training and trying to bench press 500 pounds and all that. Not that I'm not still going to lift heavy, but that's not the goal anymore.
Yeah.
The goal now is to lean down and all that on a health goal. My wife has created her company. We worked for another big fitness company a few years ago. It's actually the number one growing fitness company in the world for online. And my wife helped build most of their systems and all that. And we decided about 2 years ago that we were tired of building somebody else's dream. And we started working on her program and we've built out her app and everything else now. And so helping her grow that, there's going to be another section implemented that's going to be called Overall You. Because everything I do is with overalls, even though I'm not wearing overalls today, like an idiot. But it's going to be Overall You, and the whole point of that is like your mind, body, and soul. How do we make a better overall you?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to use my experiences, my hardships, my knowledge that I've gained through going through those experiences, because I think, if I can save somebody the trouble of going through some of the stuff I went through, it'd be great. But I'm going to help her work on that company and grow that. The big thing is we've reached a point where she's kind of as big as she can get without bringing in some money for ads and for money, so we're going to start looking for investors to get behind that to really blow that thing up so we can grow it to, a couple thousand, sponsors, what's it called? Subscribers a month and things like that. So we're growing that. That's coming up, over the next, few months. We're speaking at RiskOn. I'll be speaking at that again.
That's awesome.
Really going to dive into my speaking world. I enjoy it. I feel God, gave me a lot of experiences, which, create some knowledge and some, some point of views and perspectives. And so I really want to dive into that world more. Music, still always going to be a creator. I had somebody ask me the other day, it's like, oh man, what if you don't ever make any more money off your music? I'm like, first off, I'll always make money off my music because it's evergreen when you create something like that. I said, second off, even if I didn't, I still have to create. It's just my brain is going to create something all the time. But as I see myself, continuing into this musical world, a lot of my shift is going into young artists and me kind of managing, working with, using my knowledge to help them. Because if you told me right now, hey, Vinny, we're going to send you out on a radio tour and you're going to be gone for 60 days without coming home, I'd be like, that's going to be a hard decision because, can my family come with me, But if I was 22 again, when I signed my record deal the first time I was 22 and turned 23 that year, I'm like, it was an easy decision. Just go out there and you go play shows and you make money and you have fun and probably do a lot of stuff I probably shouldn't have done. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's just one of those deals where I kind of see myself going into that, the role of, I had a guy named Ken Harrell that took me under his wing, taught me how to write songs. So taking on that role, working with the younger artists, helping them create their brands, their models, how to tour, how to save money, how to do stuff like that. So that's coming up in the future for me. I've been asked by a couple of different spots already to do A&R for some, smaller record labels and things like that.
You'd be great.
I say small. I mean, one of them is Red Street, which is Jada Marcus's record label, and Kelly King. When I sat down and talked with her, she wanted to pick my brain about some stuff for these artists I was working with, and she's like, "Vinny, I love all your ideas. Have you ever thought about going into A&R?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I actually got a record label out of Texas that's really wanting to get into Nashville, and they've been talking to me about it, and they come with a multi-billionaire that is the backer of it and everything." I said,
"I need one of those too."
Yeah, we all do. But what I did explain to him, because I'm such an honest dude. I just told him, I said, "Hey, I just want you to know, if you want to go play the radio game, there's two ways to do it. Either you got to spend millions of dollars, millions, on one song, and it may not hit. So it's a gamble." He goes, "Well, I love to gamble." I was like, "Well, you're in the right place." I was like, "Or we got to tie in with the bigger record labels and work with their teams and put in the budget to support them." I said, "Still going to cost you millions of dollars." And he goes, "Well, the good thing is," if I'm seeing progress, he goes, "I'll put millions of dollars in tomorrow." I was like, "Well, we have to start with millions of dollars before you can see progress." So I had that honest conversation with him, because I think so many business guys, they don't understand music when they go to invest, because they want to know their ROI. They want to know exactly, how am I making my money? When am I making my money?
Sure.
What's happening here? What's happening there? And in music, it's like, don't know. We might have the next, Luke Bryan, Morgan Wallen, whoever, or you might put in millions of dollars and it fail. That's the music business.
That's right. That's right. Well, and but again, everything in life, I even go back to, you saying just a few minutes ago about, like, I wasn't comfortable sharing that stuff for a while. I didn't want people to see me as weak or whatever else. Like, this has nothing even close to the impact that you've gone through. But, like, 2024 has been a rough year for my wife and I. Just just, we'll call them first world problems, right? So, like, we spent in 2022, we broke ground on we're in the home that we always wanted, and we broke ground on the pool and the yard and everything that we wanted. And we're, right at just under the $500,000 mark on just the outside part on the house. And that's a significant amount of money. And we built the pool's fantastic. And literally, like, from the day that the water was full enough and clean enough that I could jump in it for the first time, to the day that the wall collapsed and we now we have a hole in the ground. It was 53 weeks. All right. They weren't even done truly building it yet. Like, it was right at the year mark when that happened. My wife's grandmother passed away here at the Hit Lab. We lost a bunch of power supplies due to a lightning strike. My parents my dad and stepmom were in a car accident. It was like, we just bang, 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 bang.
Mountain.
Hit. And, and I've got a pretty big platform. Yeah. And it was months. It was a couple months before I really showed anybody the pool. And the reason was because in the middle of this time, we're in the middle of a couple of different partnerships that are new, a couple of launches on a couple of products. And I was like, I don't want people to see me as down and out. Like, I don't want the plane's not going down in flames, but it sure might look that way. Yeah. So, like, I understand what you're saying. It's all in the timing, right? Yeah. It's all in the timing. Everything's all about the timing.
Well, and perception is reality, right?
That's right. That's right.
If I walk into a place, I'm hitting that thing today. If I walk into a place, if I was going to be a salesman and I walked in, I was like, "Hey, I got this thing, and I think it's okay. Maybe you should buy it. Like, I think it's, it can probably help you with your problem." You're like, "I ain't buying that shit."
That's right.
But if I come in and say, "Dude, I got the greatest thing that ever happened. This thing right here is going to solve every single problem that you got from this to this to this to this, and I love it. I use it every single day."
Yep.
Then you're gonna be like, "Heck yeah, I want some of that."
That's right.
That's gonna solve my problems.
That's right.
Which I think that's what business is you really just trying to find a way to solve somebody's problem, whatever that problem may be. So.
That's it. Money changes hands when problems are solved.
There you go.
The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial.
Well, Vinny, like, again, I could keep you here all day. I won't do that to you, but I will bring you back. That's
my wife wants me back, apparently.
That's right. Well, I hope mine does.
Wants me? Why would your wife?
No. I hope she wants me back.
I'm just kidding.
But dude, is there any closing thoughts for today?
Just I love you, and if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast and you don't know Jesus Christ, maybe do a little time digging into the Bible, do a little time, searching on the life of Jesus Christ, because at the end of the day, I feel like my job here as a Christian, it isn't to make more money. It isn't even to, I want to be the best dad I can be and all that kind of stuff. But my real job here is to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, is to let people know that there's a ultimate sacrifice that was made for you and me. And, one of my favorite quotes that people say is they go out there and say, I don't want to go to church. There's a bunch of hypocrites there. I'm like, yeah, they're there looking for the same thing you're looking for.
That's right.
We all make mistakes, give grace, give forgiveness. That's one of the, I know they say the greatest is love, but you can't have love if you ain't got forgiveness. So,
come on,
let's go out there and love each other, give somebody some grace, take time to have a conversation, be, responsive, not reactive.
That's
and,
right.
I work on that for myself every day as well.
Absolutely. And to take that a little further, I've never found or met a man that I've never met or found a man that met and got to know and accepted Jesus that regretted it.
No, not one.
You know what I mean?
It was the other day I heard somebody was saying, he said, the guy looked at me and says, but what if you're wrong? What if there is no Jesus? What if there is no God and you die? And what if you're wrong? And he goes, it won't matter.
That's right.
But
if you're wrong,
what if you're wrong?
That's right.
And I saw the guy's face like, oh crap.
That's right.
He's like, so, like I said, I know God's real. I've seen it, when I say, have you seen, no, I didn't see God with my physical eyes. I've seen God's works. I've seen miracles happen. I've seen things. I've watched, in my dad's church, not some tent revival that was set up for TV. In my dad's church, I've watched people be healed from cancer. I've watched people be healed from legs, trauma, things that would be impossible. I've watched a woman that I've known my whole life that walked with a walker as long as I could remember, throw her walker away and take off running and never have to use that walker again. So I've seen God,
Yep, that's right. Well, Bigg Vinny, it's a pleasure, my friend, to have you on the show.
Pleasure time.
Thank you for being here today.
Hey, I love y'all. Appreciate y'all having me. You too, buddy, over there in the corner, making everybody sound good.
That's right. That's right. Well, folks, we've been hanging with Bigg Vinny, singer, songwriter, athlete, actor, Biggest Loser finalist. Gosh, and by the way, I didn't even talk about this, but he's at 5 top 40 hits, 1 top 30. Come on, my man's doing it.
Been blessed. I have 50 cuts as a song, 51 cuts as a songwriter. Just never had that big number one yet.
Incredible.
But it's on its way.
That's right. That's right. Well, folks, keep up with him. BiggVinnyOfficial.com, on Instagram at Bigg Vinny Official, and on Facebook, Bigg Vinny, right?
Yep, Bigg Vinny Official, everywhere you go.
I love it. I love it. Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.